Let's start with Tier 1. We've got some sound of Jaden Daniels talking about what we all feel about, is excited that Terry McLaurin is back. That contract dispute has ended.
But I was super excited for Terry, just how much work he put in over these years, and he's deserving of it. So I'm happy that we're back out here, and now we're moving forward. We're getting ready for week 1.
Yeah, because what does it unlock for you, like when Terry is out there on the field?
I think it unlocks a lot. We got Terry out there, it can help keep defensive coordinators up at night a little bit more. So it's good to have him back out there.
Yeah, Tier 1, your guy, Jaden Daniels,
Yeah.
JD5. We've got Lamar Jackson, we've got Josh Allen, and we've rounded out the group with Jalen Hurts, who, spoiler alert, I think is in for a bigger year than some people expect. For you guys, Matthew, how big of a priority that you must get one of these Tier 1 guys?
I wouldn't use the word must. What I would say, though, is that this year in leagues, and we're talking about 1 quarterback leagues, right? We'll talk about Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues in a little bit, but when it comes to 1 quarterback leagues, I want to be one of the first guys in my league to get a quarterback, one of those first 4 guys, or I want to be one of the last, because I think once you get, and we'll talk about Burrow in a second, but I think once you get past those 4 guys who give you so many points with both their arms and their legs, that there is a drop-off. And so I want one of those 4 guys. You guys know I love Daniels. I think he could be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy this year, but I found myself with a lot of Jalen Hurts this year, because I don't think there's a lot of difference between those 4 guys. Yeah. And for some reason, Hurts is going like around and sometimes a round and a half later than those other 3, Lawrence.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, so when you're talking about Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, those are the guys who's going to get you double-digit rushing touchdowns. Mm-hmm. For Lamar and Jaden Daniels, they're not going to do that, but they're going to run for 800, 900, 1,000 rushing yards. So that's what sets them apart from the rest of the group. But when it comes to drafting these guys, yes, of course we want one of these guys in our fantasy drafts, right? But you're not going to force the issue at the end of the first round, the early second round. But if you're 3rd and 4th and you're coming up on that clock, you feel really good about a Josh Allen and Lamar. Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts probably that next round, but if you don't get that, then for me, it would be time to wait.
Yeah, I think of these guys, Hurts is the clear value relative to ADP, where I think people are baking in too much the year that Saquon had last year and how big a part he was of the offense. Yeah. Saquon's just not going to touch the ball close to 500 times, again, regular season and postseason combined. Jalen Hurts, he's going to throw the ball more this year because they just can't throw it any less than they did last year. Like, we kind of forget that even though it was Saquon's show last year, 2022, 4 weeks to go in the season, Jalen Hurts is the MVP favorite. Halfway through 2023, Jalen Hurts is the MVP favorite. This guy can put up passing stat numbers, and I think he'll do that more than he did last year. And the other thing, too, is that like some of these guys, like regression is coming. Like Josh Allen's going to throw more picks this year. He's not only going to throw 6 picks. Lamar Jackson's very likely not going to throw 41 passing touchdowns. That's just not in his arsenal. Lamar doesn't really run it in the red zone anymore because they got King Henry. Jalen Hurts, very stable production.
Yeah, the weird thing about Lamar Jackson is that, like, at the end of the year, he's going to be one of the top 3 fantasy, barring injury, he's going to be a top 3 fantasy quarterback. But I don't have a ton of Lamar. I have some, but I don't have a ton of Lamar because I feel like there's weirdly less consistency. Like, he'll have 40-point games, and then he'll have like a 12-point game because Henry gets a couple of rushing touchdowns, Kyle Hamilton runs back a pick 6 or whatever, and, they just don't need to blow out teams. Like,
it's the same thing that Jalen Hurts kind of suffered from, too. These 2 teams, Eagles and Ravens, they get ahead all the time. But for Jalen Hurts, he's got the tush push near the end zone, whereas to Lamar, he doesn't have that. So that's where those less than 20-point games will come, and then it's just that's how it goes. You got to live with it.
Remember 2 years ago, Lamar wins MVP 2023 and kind of has a blah fantasy season because they're just winning games the whole time. They never have to throw in the 4th quarter. The other thing with Lamar, too, is like he's won 2 MVPs. So he doesn't have anything to prove in the regular season. His assessment will
probably should have won a 3rd.
Yes,
but we want him to prove it again in fantasy.
Well, right, you're right. And the other thing about Lamar, though, I will say is that the emergence of Rashad Bateman, fully healthy down the stretch last year, and they paid him this offseason. Obviously, you've got Zay Flowers there. Once Likely comes back, which should be in the first couple of weeks, him and Andrews together as well. They added DeAndre Hopkins, who I think will be a decent red zone threat. I don't know that he's going to be a fantasy factor by himself, but he's another guy that gives Lamar an option in the red zone. So anyway, like, he's my number 2.
Yeah, we have a question from Nanya, Nanya Business. The difference in Tier 1 and Tier 3 isn't worth the draft capital at QB for me. What do you think, Matthew?
I disagree. Nunya. I would address you by your name, but I don't have it. Obviously I disagree, but I understand what he's saying, which is like I do think when you think about sort of the tier 3 guys, right? There are question marks around the Baker Mayfields of the world or the Kyler Murrays of the world. Like, I mean, they're in the tier 3. Like, I feel these 4 guys, rock solid production. There are some warts. Again, like tier 3, to your point, like you can wait. If you don't get one of these 4 guys, I would not panic. Right. But I also wouldn't reach. I'd rather, I've been either one of the first guys in my league to get a quarterback this year or one of the last, because I think once you get past 5, there's kind of a sameness there, and you're just as good with a Dak Prescott or a Justin Fields as you are with, like a Baker Mayfield or Bo Nix.
You mentioned the boom or bust nature of Lamar, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on like how important is consistency from a week-to-week basis when you're drafting and you're thinking about that versus just overall end-of-season total points?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're drafting a quarterback high, that's one of the reasons you're doing it is because you're locking in a big number each week. The thing about Lamar, though, is Lamar can single-handedly win you a week. And he'll do that 4 or 5 times over the course of the season. And that's the difference in a lot of leagues of making the playoffs or not. Like, he will single-handedly win you a week.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Josh Allen, too. And that's why these guys are at the top. Josh Allen had, a 51-point fantasy game last year against the Rams. Like,
right.
If you're on the brink of making the playoffs in your fantasy league and Josh Allen has that week and you got a bunch of 5s and 6s from your receiver, that's big. And those 4 quarterbacks at the top can do that. Dak Prescott can have great games because we know he's going to throw the ball. We know he's got the receivers. But can you say, I feel pretty damn good Dak Prescott giving me a 50-point game? You ain't feeling as good as Lamar, Josh Allen, or Jaden Daniels.
And to your point, Ryan McGlynn says, not much talk about Josh Allen in this show. Why? Is it the wide receiver group this year for the Bills? Are you worried?
I just talked about him.
Yeah, he just talked about him. Look, 5 straight seasons as a literally 5 straight seasons as a top 2 fantasy quarterback for Josh Allen, proud fantasy life investor, as everyone knows. I just don't think there's not much reason to talk about him because he's a superstar. Like, what else are you going to say about him? The guy is consistently great year in, year out, and we expect that offense to be, again, one of the best in the NFL, and it all starts with 17, Jay.
Yeah, one of the weird wrinkles of this season is that, so the Bills last year, they're a 2 seed, they win the division, 13-4, Allen wins MVP. They have one of the easiest schedules in football this year.
Yeah.
That's just how it's shaken out with how the scheduling is done, the fact that they don't play in a particularly difficult division too. So I'd be a little bit concerned that Josh Allen this year, and look, Josh Allen's going to be fine. You take him as a top 4 quarterback. But be a little bit concerned we might see some 2023 Lamar in 2025 Josh Allen, where the team's just winning by a lot because they're beating up on teams that they're a lot better than. But look, Allen is extremely high floor because of the rushing and because, yes, even though he doesn't have the most amazing weapons, there's still, like, he's not dependent on throwing deep. It didn't really work for them last year. Like, it's a lot of short stuff. It's a lot of him creating, him putting the cape on, and Josh Allen will be fine. It's just, I'm a bit concerned he's not going to have the type of Superman type stat lines because they're winning a ton.
We'll see how it shakes out with the defense. I will say that Allen has been one of those guys that hasn't sort of taken the brakes off. Like, he still plays at a crush 'em kind of level, even when they're winning late in the 3rd quarter here as well. I think the emergence of Keon Coleman, we expect him to take a big step this year. The addition of Josh Palmer was kind of sneaky good. If Shakir and Kincaid are healthy this year, I do think there's enough there that
I think that their pass catches are definitely better than what we give them credit for sure. Like you said, Keon Coleman, rookie last year, Josh Palmer, guy that we used to, when Justin Herbert used to throw a lot of passes, Josh Palmer was the guy catching the deep passes from him.
On the point about putting the brakes on, that is one thing with Allen where he does only have 1 speed. Patrick Mahomes has 2 speeds. Patrick Mahomes, in the playoffs, once we get there, he starts to scramble a lot more. He puts his body on the line more specifically in the playoffs. Josh Allen doesn't do that. Josh Allen has no on-off switch. He's just full go all the time, which for fantasy is good.
And the last thing I will say here is, again, like this is true for any position. But you don't have to finish the year as the number 1 option at a position to be worth being the number 1 guy there. When you're drafting a guy number 1 at his position, what you're drafting there is floor. You're basically saying, like, if I'm going to use a 3rd-round pick on Josh Allen, I want to know that, like, unless he gets hurt, that this guy is going to return that value. And again, literally 5 straight years, he's been either QB1 or QB2 in fantasy points per game. So just an incredibly high floor. He's just an incredibly safe player, at quarterback for you.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.